Here we go. It's Hot Sheet, and we've got no JJ Cooper, Ben Badler, and Carlos Collazo joining me, Scott Braun. Another week. We do this every single week, so great to have you both here. And also, I just want to keep reminding everyone that we've been unveiling the prospect profiles organization by organization. What that is a deeper dive into top prospect in each organization. And then usually we also get into some other factors, some other players involved in the org as well. So make sure you check those out on the YouTube channel and on the podcast. Just search Baseball America, of course, if you're not a subscriber on there. Let's hit the first move. Meep, meep. I want to highlight the future projection pod, guys, and pick out a couple things from there. So, Carlos, I'll start with you, and let's talk about Jackson Jobe and some of the new pitches that he's bringing to the table.
Yeah, so we talked about this on the episode of our podcast last week, which is a much longer show than Hot Sheet. So if you guys are interested in that, maybe you'll appreciate me and Ben cutting it up. But Jackson Jobe's developing pitch mix was a kind of a topic that we were really excited about because Jeff Ponce on the site wrote a piece about his developing arsenal. Jobe is already a guy who entering this year, we were pretty confident he was going to have 4 pitches that are plus or better between the fastball, the cutter, the sweeper, the changeup. Now, apparently, he's adding both a 2-seam fastball with about 10 inches of arm side run to complement that pitch mix and another breaking ball shape, a curveball that's, I believe, in the lower 80s. So now we're talking about a guy who maybe is going to have 6 pitches to attack opposing hitters as if he wasn't already showing them enough in terms of like the double plus sweeper that he has and the changeup that was an exceptional pitch. So with Jobe, I think the conversation just around how unique he is as a pitcher and some of the guys in his tier, like a Paul Skeens last year, adding the splinker out of nowhere, that was one of the best pitches in baseball seemingly overnight. Like thinking through, do you want to add more stuff to a pitcher who's already quite dominant and maybe risk taking away some feel for the other pitches? Or are there these outlier types who just have such innate ability to spin the baseball and have such feel for their arsenals that you can kind of just tweak as you need to? And maybe this will help him pitch deeper into games, turn over a lineup a few times. But I'm utterly fascinated with what this is going to look like, what he's going to settle into in terms of what are his primary breaking balls, because I did not come into this spring thinking, hey, Jackson Jobe, we need a 5th or a 6th pitch from you. But here he is experimenting with it.
Yeah, he's always been a guy who's been able to manipulate the baseball at will, it seems like, right? I mean, in high school and still continues to be, he has a wipeout pitch with his slider. He can spin it above 3,000 RPMs. And then that changeup too, maybe it's not underrated anymore because it's a huge swing and miss pitch for him. He has the ability to just generate a ton of depth, fade, swing and miss for it. And he seems to, like you said, if he's introducing new pitches to his repertoire, it's not totally surprising to me. At the same time, I don't know that he really needs to or how much he's going to use the curveball or use the 2-seamer. I mean, maybe use the 2-seamer to give hitters a different, wiggle to his fastball to think about, to move to a different side of the plate. Curveball, maybe sneak it over for an early strike pitch early in the count. But I think still we have this guy ranked as, outside of Roki Sasaki, the best pitching prospect in baseball because his fastball is already so dominant. He has that wipeout slider, and he has that filthy swing and miss changeup, and he throws a lot of strikes. He's a good athlete, a lot of other good qualities to him. So, it's interesting to see him adding more wrinkles to his repertoire, but I don't know that I don't know how much he's actually going to be able to, or how much he really needs to use some of these newer toys in the toy box for him.
Yeah. I mean, obviously it's cool from a fan perspective to see someone who's projected to be a number 1 starter already start adding pitches to the arsenal for his first full big league season coming up. By the way, we had Foul Territory at Tigers camp today. So if you want to check that out after the show, you can see more. We didn't get to Jobe. We've talked to him before, but Carlos, we did talk to Tarek Skubal, and I don't think he said this about anybody else, although it is his teammate. He's kind of jealous. He's like, I kind of don't want to watch his bullpen sessions because his stuff looks better than mine, and I'm the best pitcher on the planet right now.
If you're getting that sort of feedback from Tarek Skubal, I'm not sure how much more praise you could get at this point. So between that feedback, between the added pitches, between just what Jackson Jobe has already done at this point, one of the most exciting players in baseball. Absolutely.
Yeah, insane. So yeah, if you want to check that out, go for it. I want to hit the Boston Red Sox next, but first we'll step aside for a quick moment, give some love to Arena Club. FT fam, Arena Club is the modern way to collect cards or buy or sell or trade or even grade. And we're highlighting slab packs because this is the new way to rip open a pack and get a really good card, AJ. But also, if you're not into the card, like I know you pulled a Bob Gibson card recently, you can get an offer of 90% of the estimated value and just accept it on the spot and give it right back and maybe try again with another slab pack.
I ain't getting rid of my Bob Gibson autograph card. Bob Gibson ain't signing cards anytime soon, so I'm keeping this one. It gets graded for you. There's no mess. The only thing I wish they had bubble gum. Can they virtually send me some bubble gum, Scott? Other than that, it's awesome. You can buy, sell cards. They grade them instantly for you. And physically, you can also get the cards if you want them. So I'm all for this. This is one of the coolest things I've ever seen.
Yeah, those cards are in your showroom in the app. And then, of course, you can get the card physically sent to you. So right now, you can get 20% off your first slab pack or card purchase by going to arenaclub.com/FOUL. That's arenaclub.com/FOUL. Code FOUL for 20% off your first purchase. All right, we're back, and we're going right to the Red Sox, okay? Basically, if not the story of spring training, it's got to be up there, Ben, because of the trio of prospects they have. We just saw them show off at the breakout performance as well, which we'll get to later. But let's talk business with MLB, right? And what you guys talked about on your future projection pod as well. What do you see as a timeline for each of these guys? And it doesn't look like any of them, of the trio, right, are going to crack the big leagues right off the jump. Do you agree?
I think that's probably the case. The one thing that I think could change it, or one thing that really could change it, is if the Red Sox offer these guys a Jackson Chourio type contract extension, and one of them takes it. I mean, if I was the Red Sox, I'd be looking at all three of these guys: Marcelo Meyer, Christian Campbell, Roman Anthony, throwing them that kind of Jackson Chourio plus maybe a little extras. Oh, we top Chourio's contract. Okay, fine. Get the win there for them and the agent, and seeing if they'll take it. Now, maybe some of them won't, and they want to bet on themselves and go year to year, and that might be the case. But all three of these guys look like potential perennial all-stars now, especially Roman Anthony. I mean, this guy extremely polished, both as a hitter with his swing decisions, the power. Whether it's center field, corner outfield, I don't think it really matters. I think he's going to be a potential impact hitter in the middle of the lineup. Christian Campbell has been a phenomenal story since being a fourth-round pick out of Georgia Tech in 2023, our minor league player of the year. Last year, he's added a ton of bat speed, power to go with a guy who already has tremendous bat-to-ball skills as well. Marcelo Meyer, he's the guy who probably needs a little bit more time just because he got hurt last year and then was hurt the year before. So he has the least amount of AAA time. And then where exactly does he fit into that lineup right now to be determined, especially with the Red Sox signing Alex Bregman now. So I think, you're right. They could all start in AAA, but if I were the Red Sox, I'd be trying to, I'm sure they are, trying to lock these guys up to an extension if they're willing to take it.
Yeah, I mean, I would really like to see them come up quickly. I think this Red Sox lineup, we've heard a lot about how they maybe have too many good players around, but the lineup is much more fascinating to me when you're plugging into the outfield. I think at this point, he's probably the number 2 option in their outfield for me, just in terms of the excitement. I think, like Ben said, you could play him really in whatever position you want. But just to get as much explosion in the lineup, I think Christian Campbell has a number of places that he could play defensively. I think he's close to being ready. All these guys, I think, are near close to ready. The point about Marcelo Meyer maybe needing some more time just because of the injuries makes a lot of sense to me. But in terms of like running out your best defensive lineup, running out a lineup that has the most offensive upside, I think it is going to include all 3 of these guys sooner than maybe some people expect. And this is also why I'm a really big fan of the PPI program, because with all these guys ranking very highly in the top 100 list, being eligible for an extra pick, I would think all the incentives are there for you to put your best talent on the big league roster, win as many games as you can, and then maybe you're going to get an extra pick with the performances if you get these guys up soon enough. Because, I mean, what do they need to do to like make their case? They've done it at the minor league level, at a high level. I hope they push them extremely quickly.
Yeah, especially if these guys get off to hot starts, right? Even if they don't crack the roster right away, if they look like they're ready and they've got a spot open. The other thing to consider, Carlos, is where the Red Sox are. I bring this up almost every season. I used to do it more often when guys were purposely being held back, but I always wonder, what if Team X misses the playoffs by a game or two? Do you feel like you put the best team on the field for the entire season? To me, if you can say that, you're good, right? But
Mhm.
if you felt like you held a guy back and you should have called him up April 10th instead of May 5th, then in my mind, shame on you if you were trying to kind of be cute with service time at that point.
Absolutely. I mean, I agree entirely. This AL East division is super close. The injuries that the Yankees have had to deal with make it even closer. You went out and you got Garrett Crochet in a big move, traded from some of your prospect capital to do that. Unless you think that you are going to be hurting these prospects by putting them up at the major league level right now, I don't really see a case for them being held down too long. Like Ben said, Roman Anthony, one of the best prospects in the game for a reason. He's such a well-rounded hitter. He's got the physicality. He's got the power. He's got the bat to ball skills. I say push them up and let them play. You've got a really young, exciting core to compete with the Baltimores of the world, to compete with the Yankees. I'm with you entirely. I think we should be trying to put the best team we can on the field. And in my mind, I would rather have Roman Anthony in the lineup than a guy like Sedane Rafaela. I think he's a nice piece. I would rather have Roman Anthony getting more at bats than Rafaela.
Yeah, and they're invested in Rafaela too, but he can bounce around a little bit, and you just don't want anybody holding back something that could be a star right from the jump, and you see that potential. I mean, just look at Jackson Churio last year. Obviously, called up from the jump, signs the contract, slow start, but then he was the best player on the team for the last 4 months of the season. So, on that note, Ben, Roman Anthony stood out in the breakout games, among others. So let's go through what Baseball America put together. 20 players who caught your eye, including top hitters, pitchers, prospects beyond the top 100, defensive standouts, moments that mattered. You want to read that? You want to get every 20 or all the 20 players listed on there? Go for it. BaseballAmerica.com subscription. But can you give me a name or two that stood out that you'd like to call out?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, the Red Sox big three delivered as advertised, but on the mound, Bubba Chandler with the Pirates looked pretty electric. No surprise, right? I mean, 2 scoreless innings. He threw 100 miles an hour, above average slider. He's got a plus changeup. He throws a lot of strikes. He looks electric. I think he's going to have a strong case this year to be in that Rookie of the Year conversation. And you look at that Pirates rotation. You got Paul Skeens, Jared Jones, Keller. Now you throw in Bubba Chandler at some point this year. It's a pretty electric young pitching staff. It's going to be one of the best pitching staffs, one of the best starting rotations, at least in baseball. I wish they had more to help in their lineup because, I mean, they're running out 3-4 really talented young stars, and I think Bubba Chandler has. I mean, I think has a chance to maybe be a number 1 starter. Obviously, in that rotations, he won't be probably the number 1 guy with Paul Skeens ahead of him. But yeah, I think he has a chance to at some point develop into just one of the best pitchers in the league.
Yeah, I'm as excited about Chandler as you are. One of the names that I was really excited to see in this piece and excited to hear that he was pitching well, though, is Twins left-handed pitcher Connor Prelip. Prelip was a guy who, going back to his draft class in 2022, he had tremendous pure stuff, but injuries have just been an absolute bugaboo for him. He's had Tommy John surgery. He was on a pitch limit last year in 2024 when he was pitching mostly at high A Cedar Rapids. But when he's been on the mound, he has been electric. If he can get healthy, log some more innings, pitch deeper into games, the stuff that he's flashed from the left side is super exciting. And if he's healthy, it wouldn't shock me if he was a huge riser throughout this season. He's got a fastball up to 96 pretty regularly, gets a few ticks harder than that. His slider at times has been a dominant pitch. I mean, he was throwing that pitch nearly half the time his sophomore year, I believe, in college, and making hitters just look silly. So he's got an above average or plus breaking ball. He's got a cutter. He's got a changeup. He's got the tools to miss bats and to be a high performing pitcher. Just health has been the thing that's holding him back. So it's a nice start to him for his season this spring. Good to see the stuff is looking good. Just fingers crossed for health, because the Twins have done a really nice job with pitching in general, I think, in the last few drafts. And Prelip maybe is another name to keep an eye on.
Okay. Yeah, and I'll actually finish with a shout out, and I'm gonna have to go to my trusty little pronunciation guide to make sure I get the name right for our switch pitcher from Seattle, unless someone wants to just shout it out before I get there. But
Durangelo
I'm gonna need
Saintja.
help. Senja, there we go. Yes, I wrote it down actually last night. Durangelo Senja is 5'11", and yes, he is a switch pitcher. And let's finish here because obviously we talked about him last year, Carlos. This is a legit prospect. No offense to Pat Venditti, he had a little run for a 5-year span. I think made about 60 appearances in the big leagues, but this is legit stuff, right? Especially from one side, especially as a right-handed pitcher where you're getting into the upper 90s. But tell us, what we saw there and what we can expect from him potentially this season at some point for the Mariners.
Yeah, I'm not sure how fast he's going to move. He started focusing on the right-handed side a lot more during his draft year and really took a step up draft boards and got into the first round because of that. But I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that Saintja is the most talented ambidextrous player ever, like we've ever seen. He gets up to 92 or better from both sides. The fact that he can throw 92 from the left side, put the glove on his other hand and throw 96. He's been up to 97, 98 from the right side. He is a legitimate pitcher from both sides. I'm really fascinated to see how often he's going to go to that left side. At his best in college, he used the left-handed pitching as more of a specific left-on-left matchup. He can throw a fastball pretty consistently. He's got a breaking ball that's effective. So I would imagine on against left-handed hitters, who struggle in lefty matchups specifically or struggle with lefty spin. That'll be an intriguing little piece you can throw at opposing teams. But as a right-handed pitcher, if he only threw right-handed, he would still be an exceptionally talented player. He's got a better slider from that side. He's got a deeper pitch mix from the right side. And his touch and feel from both sides is pretty impressive considering the amount of work that he has to put in to just get the release point consistent, get his mechanics in line from both sides. I imagine it's pretty exhausting to do that, but it's an absolute weapon for a team to have. You essentially have two pitchers in one roster spot. That alone makes him one of the more interesting players in the game.
Yeah, just like a switch hitter. It seems like, he's got double work to do, if not more than that, obviously, because there's arm care involved as well. But he went 15th overall last year at Mississippi State. Let's hit number 3 overall from last year. Some unfortunate injury news for Charlie Condon, who, I'm sure we anticipated we would see maybe at some point this season. Hopefully that's still the case, but at least not for the start of the year in the minors. Carlos, he breaks his wrist.
Yeah, it was a bummer to hear about this because his debut last summer wasn't the greatest. There was a lot of swing and miss with strikeouts, and we're hoping that a lot of that was tied to the hand issue he was battling through. Even then, obviously, he was our top ranked player in the class last year. He signs a record draft bonus tied with Chase Burns for the biggest in the class. When we've seen Charlie Condon going right, he is as explosive an offensive player as we've seen in years. I mean, the numbers that he put up with Georgia was just exceptional. He's got exit velocities that rival Jack Caglione, and he had pure hitting ability in college that rivaled pure hitters like Travis Bazzana and J.J. Weatherall. That's what made him such a compelling player. So this just kind of slows down the development timeline for him moving forward. I think I was curious to see where he was going to play defensively. He's a guy who's moved around third base, corner outfield. He's played center field. So where was he going to settle in his first full pro season? So it's a bummer to see for Condon. His stock has kind of fallen just because of some of these injuries and because the swing and miss has been a little bit more than we've expected. Some people are more ready to penalize him for that. Others are willing to say, he was hurt, so we kind of don't expect him to be at 100%. So it's just a bummer to see. You want to see him on the field and healthy. And I would be surprised if, based on what I've heard from this injury, if he was out the whole year. It sounds like it's going to be more like 7 to 8 weeks or so. So hopefully he can come back and we'll get a better feel for what he's looking like.
If you're a Rockies fan, obviously you're excited and hopeful that he turns out to be the next big thing. Chase Dollander has been talked about a ton this spring, but also to be realistic, this is not a team that's competing this year. So even if he, spends some time at the end of the season and just gives you a flash of what he brings to the table, I think if you're a Rockies fan, you could be happy with that and hopefully look towards 2026, 2027, etc. All right, let's get to 2026 actually, Ben. So you just released the recruiting rankings for 2026. So let's get to the college scene here and give us more on this article and just give us a little taste. Again, obviously, baseballamerica.com. Make sure you get a subscription, dive into this. there's a ton. It's long, top 100 draft prospect, college prospects, high schoolers, etc. But what are we working with here that stands out?
Yeah, so we're looking ahead to the 2026 recruiting classes for college baseball programs, and most of our top 200 prospects at this point have committed, and really the two classes for me that stand out the most are Texas and Vanderbilt, right? Like maybe not a huge surprise to major powerhouse programs, but I think there's certainly a lot of draft risk with both these classes, right? If you're recruiting the best players in the country. Major league teams are going to want these guys too, but there's still a lot of these guys who will get to campus, right? And when you do hit on like a true blue chip recruit like a Dylan Cruz who does get to school, it can change your program like an LSU. So, Texas has shortstop Grady Emerson. He's the number one prospect in the class. We also just released our 2026 draft rankings. He's also the number one prospect for the draft overall, so probably a lower likelihood that he gets to campus. But you just look up and down their class. I mean, they're loaded with hitters. Bo Peterson, a third baseman, Brady Murrieta, a catcher, some of the best arms in the country too. Trey Rangel, a right-handed pitcher who's the top pitcher in the country. Left-hander Brody Bumila, 6'8" lefty from Massachusetts, throwing 96 with a pretty good changeup too. The number 2 left-handed pitcher in the country, and you could just go up and down their class. They're loaded throughout, and Vanderbilt too. I think they have a pretty good case to be the number one recruiting class as well. I mean, Keon Johnson and Aiden Ruiz, a couple of super talented shortstops. Johnson has a lot of bat speed and power potential with a chance to stick at shortstop. Aiden Ruiz is a really smooth shortstop from New York with some of the best defensive action in the class, great bat-to-ball skills, switch hitter, not the biggest guy, but some sneaky pop in there. Noah Wilson and Eric Booth, two of the most talented outfielders in the class, and they have a ton of really exciting, projectable arms, guys like Eli Hurst from Washington, Sean Duncan out of Canada, really smooth left-handed pitcher, David Hinojosa, right-handed pitcher from New York, who's been trending up, reaching 94, close to 95 miles an hour this year. So both these programs recruiting some of the best players from all around the country right now.
Yeah, and Ben, you can keep running down these names probably for days, but what stands out to me, just hearing you talk about this 2026 high school class, hearing guys like Peter Flaherty at Baseball America breaking down the college class, I think the 2026 class is a group that scouts have been looking forward to for years. This high school position player pool that Ben was just breaking down, you heard about a bunch of shortstops. I think there are a ton of really exciting shortstops that are going to make this class really electric at the top end. Maybe the best high school class we've had since that loaded 2023 group that was headlined by Max Clark and Walker Jenkins. We got Justin LeBron topping the college list at Alabama, shortstop who's just been bonkers early this year, hitting for average, hitting for power. He's been one of the better players in college baseball. So if you are a huge draft fan, if you're in dynasty leagues that are open universe, this 2026 group is definitely one you're going to need to know, and you can dive way more into this class by checking out Ben's scouting reports on the top 200 players in the class, and we do have that first combined look at the class with the college players folded in as well.
Did you guys, I don't know if you caught this, it was last week we're at Rangers camp for Foul Territory, and we spoke to both Jack Leiter and Kumar Rocker, and we asked both of them how much they think they would have commanded money-wise in school. Jack shied away, although he was second. We had already asked Kumar, and he kind of agreed with what he had said, but he said 7 figures. Now, it sounded like he said it would be a 2-year span, and I don't know if he was saying for both of them combined or for each of them, but it sounded like he said, $1 million or two for those guys, if they were, say, 2 of the top 5 pitchers in college baseball for a 2-year span.
Hearing about it's tough to say with any certainty because none of these numbers are official, but just hearing some of the numbers that get floated around for some of the players who are ranked lower than where we had both Kumar and Jack Leiter coming out of high school, that wouldn't shock me entirely. I think Kumar Rocker still is the highest ranked high school player we've had get to campus since we've been doing these college recruiting rankings. So that number it may sound crazy. It still maybe is a little hard to wrap your mind around at the college level, but I think that makes a lot of sense, actually.
Yeah, I think they're right. And I think they probably have pretty good feel for what the marketplace is like too. I mean, those were two of the most famous college pitchers in recent years, and two great examples of two guys who could have on talent been first round picks coming out of high school based on where we had them ranked top 30 players overall on our draft board that year. But they chose to go to school instead. And I think we are seeing NIL have an impact on high school players now. Now, for guys who could be potential first round picks, like first round signing bonus money, it's a little bit harder. Although we had a case last year with William Schmidt. I mean, maybe it's a little different because he's a Louisiana kid committed to LSU who on talent could have been a first round pick or would have gotten paid like a first round pick. But on draft, they said to teams, you know what, guys, don't draft me. I'm going to LSU instead. They got Derek Curiel too, an outfielder who's, could be the freshman of the year this year in the SEC, who, did take his name out of the draft. So we are seeing other cases too now where, again, maybe not always the first round pick, but guys who are just beyond that, where schools are saying, hey, let's offer these guys some big NIL money and hope we can get them to campus instead of going to the minor leagues for a few years.
I'll say this as March Madness is, upon us, and the NCAA tournament is coming up in a few days. I know a lot of coaches continue to be outspoken, especially in hoops. I've followed quite a few of them that have called out the NIL process for baseball purposes. And I know we can talk about this for hours. If you're keeping a few extra top talents in college baseball, from a fan perspective, I don't really care about the money and the extra time recruiting and dealing with, all the crap behind the scenes. It's kind of cool, Carlos, for me, right? If you prevent a few other guys from maybe spending a little extra time in low A and instead they get one more season in college baseball, kind of better for me.
If you're a fan of college baseball, I don't think we've ever seen college baseball as talented as it currently is between NIL and just between the fact that there are fewer low-level minor league spots for these high school players to go. So you're just seeing more players in general, and then more of these bigger names getting lured to campus with NIL money that maybe previously don't. So if you like the college game, it's phenomenal.
Yep. And that's where you're going to get the pushback. If you do a fan poll, I know they don't care a ton about us necessarily when they're making big decisions like this. If you do a fan poll, I'm like, cool, better competition, sign me up. It makes for a better performance, especially if you're getting like big name pitchers that are waiting, to go into the draft because they're getting all the tools they need behind the scenes plus a little bit of cash. Anyway, yes, we could spend a lot of time on that. If you want to listen to the Future Projection Pod, go search for it, of course, with Ben and with Carlos. And thanks, guys, for joining me this week. Good chatting with you. Good talking shop. Reminder to everyone to please check out those prospect profiles. We're working hard on those to get organization by organization down all spring training long. So look up your favorite team. We probably have it listed. If not, it's coming soon. See you next week.